Hello and welcome to 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk. I'm your host, Coach Kevin Bull Jones. And tonight, sports fans, I wanted to wait until the smoke cleared so I could get a chance to talk about how the Falcons did and their grade status and what we thought down here in the Peach State. But I wanted to bring in a special friend of mine who knows the Falcons like no one else. You know him as Chris Goforth on the pregame show for the Falcons and the Saturday AM show. I know him as the G-Man, and I welcome him back to the show so we can talk some Falcon football and a little bit with those folks going on also. What's going on up in Athens? How you doing, Chris?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to it, man. I guess we're about to find out a little later what the Falcons' schedule is going to look like, the total schedule for 2021. So, look, man, it's you're in spring practice with your guys. So, shoot, man, it's football season.
I tell you what, the greatest part, I didn't realize how much I missed spring practice. You know, a lot of times for us coaches, Chris, we don't really like spring practice. We want to get it over with and pray that nobody gets hurt. We want to get a chance to see the new kids. You know, that's 10 days on high school level. It's 10 days of coaching some kids up and going through your basic stuff and try to get a spring game in. But this time, I'm not going to lie. We were out there today just getting it in, even in the misty, rainy weather. And it felt good to be around football and kids and talking football in the spring. It was a magnificent time. I'll tell you that right now. So I can imagine what everybody else felt like.
Yeah, just a little bit of normal right now feels awfully good, doesn't it?
You got that right. Speaking of normal, okay, here we go. I just wanted you to come back and I wanted to be able to just hit some of these points about the Falcons draft picks and some inside talk about what happened. Now, I will confess, Chris, I really was thinking another way in terms of I will admit it, sports fans, and if you heard the previous shows, I said I wanted to see a quarterback. But this time, Chris, I'm going to trust what the Falcon Brain Trust put together to be able to – the fan in me wanted to see a quarterback come to Atlanta, but the coach in me definitely understands exactly why a person of Cal Pitts' athleticism was taken in the first round in the top 4 picks.
Yeah, I think we learned a couple of things coming out of this draft. I think we learned what the Falcons' new coaching staff and general manager, what they think about Matt Ryan. And I think we also got a little bit of a better understanding of the direction of things. I think rather than do a total rebuild, this group feels like they can do a retool and get this team competitive quickly. And I think that's what they're going to try to do. Now, I think eventually you may just be putting off a rebuild for a couple of years. But at this point, I think that's kind of the way it's looking right now for the Falcons. Like they think they can be able to, they got enough guys, got enough pieces, got the right quarterback. Let's put some stuff around him and let's see what can happen. I think there's a lot of questions on that defense though. But, you know, you and I, last time I was here, we talked about it, the fact that, it looked like all signs were pointing to Kyle Pitts being the guy. And, I thought they should have went after Penei Sewell. But it ended up being Kyle Pitts, and I don't think anybody's going to be, disappointed with the way this guy's going to play.
Well, from a coaching standpoint, I can, and everybody has talked about the matchup problems that you have with having a Kyle Pitts out there, and presumably, if Julio Jones is still with us in the fall, that's a whole nother segment to talk about it at another time. But I hope that, things would be able to happen. But I know that the Falcons are making it, they're not making it known what they're going to do. But the coaching part of me, if I had to line up against Kyle Pitts, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage, and just those 4 players to have to line up. And if you gave me a 3-by-1 set with 3 receivers on one side and one 3 on one side and 1 on the other, and that 1 on the other just happens to be Julio Jones. And if you had a chance to have those other 3 guys, Ridley, Gage, and of course Kyle Pitts on the other side, I would really try to unplug the stadium lights and the clock and the televisions so that there couldn't be a game, because there's just realistically speaking, you're really giving up some things as far as where the holes are in the defense when you have to defend those guys.
No, I think you're exactly right. And I mean, we've seen before, even when Julio's not 100%, he's still somebody you have to account for, and in large part, have to plan on putting multiple bodies on him. I still think who do you end up putting on Kyle Pitts? I think he is a matchup problem. I think we talked about this before. The idea that I don't really think he lines up in a traditional tight end position. He may some, but I don't think he does that a whole lot. I think they'll still use Hayden Hurst in that position. And I think what you see from Kyle Pitts is him more split out wide a lot. He said in one of his post-draft interviews that every day after practice at Florida that he would go back out onto the field and he would practice and run routes lining up out wide, because that's where he had been told, and everybody felt like that would be where he ends up playing in the NFL. Not necessarily tight to the line of scrimmage, but in a, whether that's in a slot or a flanker type position or just split out wide, that's where he feels like that he's going to end up playing. I think that's the way the Falcons will use him. I think it really creates a mess. I would expect the Falcons to do a lot of one-back sets. Yeah. And then from there, what does that wide receiver, including the tight ends, what's that receiver group look like? I would expect we'll see Hayden Hurst out there. I think Kyle Pitts will be there. Julio's going to be there. And Calvin Ridley's going to be there. And if Julio's not there, then, it's got to be Ridley and Russell Gage that will be out there with Pitts. So either way you slice it, when healthy, that's a pretty darn good group that you're going to have to figure out how to slow down.
Well, and once again, I'm going to put that defensive coordinator hat on for a second, because what happens is we still got Cordell Patterson, that here's a scenario with him in an empty set. And I mean Matt Ryan in an empty formation, meaning nobody in the backfield but him in a shotgun situation. And there's a 5-wide scenario. And it's a scenario that every defensive coordinator has to address at some point in time. And then when you look at what the Falcons have done, instead of the ground and pound concept that people think that they're going to go with, and I'm sure they'll have some kind of blend, but Chris, if you go with those 5 guys in an open set, empty set, we call it, that makes every defensive coordinator and opponent that the Falcons play and have to line up against that makes them have to usually go to a 3-man front, dime situations and secondary coverage personnel. And here's the thing that ironically, and we know that Matt Ryan is not a quote unquote runner, but it opens lanes for your quarterback to be able to, if somebody is covered, it allows for a lot of space to run. And that's just amazing, because, of course, sports fans cringe to hear that Matt Ryan would have to run that much. But I'm just giving a scenario from the defensive side. You have to look at everything that type of formation would pose. And you and I both know, in some of Matt Ryan's most successful years, he's been in that up-tempo play call at the huddle. Play call at the line of scrimmage. And he had a lot of empty set formations that he had a lot of success with. Now, who would think that something like that might pop up in September this fall?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I could see a lot of that. I think, you referenced before kind of the ground and pound that a lot of people think this offense is going to be. I'm kind of with you. There's going to be some of that.
Right.
I think in the passing game, I think you're going to see a lot. I'll be shocked if we don't see a lot of play action
Yeah.
in terms of the passing game, more so than what we have seen. Um, Arthur Smith has in the past, he has liked to use two tight ends. You go back and look at what he did in Tennessee. They ran a lot of two tight sets. So I think we're going to see a lot of that over the course of this year. It does open up some things for Matt Ryan, but I think, kind of to your point, Bull, in what it does is you're taking an offensive line that can struggle, and instead of having to try to block 4 or 5 guys with a pass rush, you can kind of maybe take away some of those blitzers from the outside or from up the middle, and you got 5 trying to block 3, and you're going to give Matt Ryan time to throw. And I think we've seen it time and time again there that if you can give that guy time and you can keep him upright, he can be a pretty good quarterback and can put up some good numbers. So that's kind of what I think we'll see. I think we'll see a lot of play action. And, and again, if they can go 5 wide and take some of the pressure maybe off of that offensive line, which I still think is a question mark, it's only going to benefit.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. Getting back, let's get real quickly down to some of the other. I will tell you something. Some of the other guys that they drafted, there are 2 steals in this draft that I believe the Falcons hit it right on the nose. Awesome job by their scouting department. And it is reminiscent of some of those things that the Saints were able to do when Mr. Fontenot was there. Richie Grant, unbelievable. He is a cover guy that plays in the secondary, on the hash, in the box, man free. He is a safety that can cover. I know they brought in 2 free agent guys to kind of hold the fort down for some veteran leadership, but this kid really is off the charts, and he didn't get enough recognition as far as the media is concerned. The guys behind the scenes knew how good Richie Grant was. And tell me what you thought about him.
No, I love the pick. I think he fits in exactly to that style that Dean Pease is going to want to play. And what I like about this guy, you mentioned the fact that what he can do in coverage, and he did cover the slot receiver a lot at Central Florida, but he's also a guy that can come down in the box and play against the run. He's not afraid to hit you. And I think that is going to be that's going to be big. I think he's got a chance. He's a day one starter to me. He's like Kyle Pitts. The day he steps onto that practice field at Flowery Branch, he's immediately going to the ones because I think he's that good. I think he can have that kind of an impact on this defense. And let's face it, back into this defense, it should worry everybody that's a Falcons fan because I think we saw early in the year last year how bad it was. And the bodies are a little thinner back there now than what they were then. I think A.J. Terrell's going to be fine, but you got to put some more people around them. I think you got a little bit of an enforcer back there in Richie Grant. That's what I think of that guy. I know he's good in coverage, but I'm more impressed with the way he can bring the wood when he goes to hit somebody.
Well, he reminds me as far as, and this is something that I do with my safeties in regards to, we play a game called peekaboo with the quarterback. And that is something that I got a chance to, sniffing around, being at some of the NFL camps and hearing the dialogue and the jargon and being able to talk to some coaches that are disciples of that 3-4 defense and just talking about playing peekaboo with the quarterback, giving him an idea that you're reading one thing when you're reading another. And he does that well. He reminds me in some cases of Ed Reed in that same 3-4 discipline that Coach Pease is coached in before, and he's well versed in it. And the kid really jumps off screen and being able to jump routes. And that was a crutch for us in the previous seasons with Neil back there, and because he was a big hitter, but he was a casualty for us as far as coverage. So now you got a kid that can do both. He was a steal. The next person, Chris, I think is a steal, and sports fans, you all are going to love him if you're Falcon fans. Ade Alkandiji, I hope I said that right. I was close, but this kid from Notre Dame, he plays bigger than 6'4", 255. He has got an incredible burst. He's long armed. But the thing that I love most about him is when he runs his stunts, there is a lean for a person that big that, believe it or not, only the defensive ends that are top draft picks, the top 5, know that lean. There's a certain lean when those guys do what we call run the hump. And I think he's a fascinating person that the Falcons picked up. To me, he's a true steal. And I think he's going to interrupt somebody on that depth chart about playing time.
Be great if he could. I mean, I still think that's the question mark for the Falcons, especially at defensive end. Who's the other guy opposite Dante Fowler? It would be great if Ogundeji, I believe I'm saying it right too, if he can be that guy. I mean, I think that would be huge for the Falcons if they're able to get him on the field in some capacity early on, because I think that's one of the battles going into training camp that are going to have to be figured out is who is that other guy opposite Dante Fowler Jr. And is it going to be Stephen Means? Is it Tuodi Mariner? I don't know. That's one of those things that's going to have to be figured out. And if you're able to get a guy in there on a rookie contract, we know where this team is with the salary cap. Being able to put a guy in there on the rookie contract it'd be big, really would.
Well, one thing, a former teammate of mine and former Falcon, also Terrence Mathis, mentioned even on one of the previous shows that he and I were together on. He talked about those rookie guys who maybe go later on in the draft and they got a little chip on the shoulder about where they were drafted and they feel like they were a high grade player. And so they come in with a forced vengeance to push those veterans. And I, for one thing, as a coach, that's the best thing that can happen to Fowler. They happen to Montavious Adams, everybody that's on that defense and is rushing the quarterback. I think the greatest thing that can happen is those veterans get to see a young kid coming out of college who wants a chance to play in the NFL and, quite frankly, take your spot. And I can see Ogundeji being a stand-up rush backer. That's how fluid I think he is. I think he makes himself skinny when he gets through the hole on twist stunts, and then when he gets off the edge, incredible body lean. And then you have Barkevious Mingo. So these guys are hungry. He's a cagey veteran, coming off the defensive side of the ball, playing in that 3-4 scheme. So I think those guys, even though we don't have the big name players coming out that we signed on that side of football, I just think that Ogundeji is a steal, and I can't wait to see this kid get into camp, and he's going to make somebody have to earn their money.
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about it before when I was on with you. You're going into this draft, you got to find some starters. You got to find guys that could come on and be able to play. Unfortunately, be able to step in and play right away. That may not be ideal for the Falcons, right. And there's going to be some growing pains with all these guys, including Kyle Pitts. But the fact if you can get a guy that can come in and contribute in an area that, let's face it, it feels like it's been a decade of us talking about where that pass rush is going to come from. If you can pick up a guy in this class that can come in and can give you anything, because we know Falcons have taken guys earlier in drafts before at that position that have not panned out at all. So if you can get that guy to come in where he was drafted and give you anything in terms of being able to get after the quarterback, I think that's a win. I think that's a huge win.
Well, the last sleeper I think that's in the draft that the Falcons got a hold of was Darren Hall, who I think that for his size, he jumps off the screen to me because he is a lot of players in the secondary, there is one Achilles heel that they usually have, and they try to cover it up. A lot of times, I keep mentioning this to everybody, when you get a chance to watch their highlights, and you see all of their highlights where they've made coverage plays in the slot, then you can pretty much tell that his best plays were not covering out wide, the wide receiver, the X. So if you can do all of those things, cover in the slot, make plays against the in route, the dig routes, the quick slants if you're on the outside. When you're a corner that can do all of the above and be a nasty tackler, because he is a nasty tackler. I mean, he's coming with every bit of his soul, his body. He's bringing the wood. This kid makes plays on deep balls, on the short routes, and the crossing routes, which a lot of times I discipline secondary guys lose it when they're covering somebody in man going across, going across the field. That is a Achilles heel on all levels because the eye discipline, they take it off of the receiver and put it back on the quarterback. And when they do that, they lose. There's a separation from the receiver and the defensive back. But this kid, Chris, I believe he's gonna wake up some people and he's gonna make some people have to play better. And I want the competition. That is the thing I want from the Falcons at all their positions. Give me the competition. And as a coach, I'm fine. As a fan, I love it, because I want to see, iron sharpens iron.
Right. Well, and I think that. Yeah, I think that's what they're trying to do. I think they tried to create clearly from this draft. There's a couple things we talked about, kind of having a feeling of the direction now of where Fontenot and Smith think they can go with this. We now feel like we got an understanding of how they view Matt Ryan. The other thing that I think the message was sent in this draft is they watched that offensive line from last year and go, we're not good enough here. And we got to have more guys. And so they end up taking a couple offensive linemen in this draft, creating competition. Nothing's going to be given to Matt Hennessy. He's going to have to go earn that job at center in order for him to be able to play there. Same thing goes in the secondary. They have gone out now and brought in more guys that can come in and compete for jobs to try to get the best you can on the field at corner. Last year, opposite Isaiah Oliver, you go back the first couple of weeks of the season, man, they were terrible. A lot of people were getting on opposite AJ Terrell, they were terrible. Right. And if you go back and I know there were people getting on Terrell early in the year for how he was playing. Right. I'll cut the rookie a little bit of slack early on. There were a couple of veterans getting burned like toast on that opposite side of the field last year. That can't happen this year. You got to be better there. So again, to your point, yes, I agree totally. Man, they have gone out and created some competition at a couple of different positions. Offensive line being one, secondary being the other, to try to find the, in the case of the offensive line, the 5 best guys you got, and in the secondary, you're going to need the 4, 5, maybe 6 best guys you can find.
Well, I think that you made me feel a whole lot better from our previous show together, because in the beginning, before the draft, I was trying to figure out where this thing was really going. And you had a great cue on where this thing could possibly go. And I think that it really, the pieces to the puzzle came together, just like you said. Maybe we're not in a rebuilding today thing, and you mentioned it. I was been on quarterback. That was the fan in me. But you said, wait a minute, maybe we can get more out of Matt Ryan. And now I'm one of those that's saying the same thing like you. Listen, this guy has been a staple in the NFL for a long time. Now, we don't expect him to do the wildcat or the zone read and take off with the ball. But his arm, if we keep him up, he's going to be fine. So you made me feel better there. And then when we got the pick of Kyle Pitts, the coach in me said, that's going to be a problem to defend. And you mentioned that Pitts might be the guy. So hats off to you. I might have to steal you. I might have to talk to the Falcons to see if I can steal you probably on Friday night for a couple of hours, so I can go ahead and play this man pressure and go after people down here in Metro Atlanta and try to shake the world up in North Atlanta.
Kev, just send me huddle tape, man. I'll send you back a scouting report every week. Just get me a huddle account, will you?
Hey, that's better already done. You don't even have to say it anymore, and we'll go ahead and we'll break that film. Oh man. So last thing I want to hit on real quick, and I just want to. I know there's been a lot of talk about the Dogs after their spring game. I am pleased to see that they have a sense of comfort at their starting quarterback position. I said last year when we started the season, and I mentioned on my shows and prognostications about where teams would end up, and I said because of the pandemic and no spring practice, the quarterbacks, the gunslingers were going to determine who's going to be in that championship game. And, I'm not going to pat myself on the back right now because my arms are probably too short, but, I do believe that Georgia's finally found what they need to move forward and be comfortable in slinging the ball. Listen, they threw the ball 87 times in the spring game. Now, I can tell you what I think from that, but you tell me what you think from that.
Well, one, I don't take a whole lot out of a spring game. That's one. Now, what I will take from is some of the comments that Kirby Smart and Todd Monken had made before and after that spring game, talking about the need to be more vertical in the passing game, the need to be able to take the top off the defense a little bit. That idea of being vertical. When I think about a vertical passing game, man, I think about those old Raider teams from back in the 70s. That's how, send Cliff Branch deep and Stabler's going to sling it as far as he can. I don't know necessarily that will be kind of the bread and butter of Georgia. I still think at the end of the day, Georgia is going to be a downhill running football team. But I do believe they have the quarterback now and the pieces around him for them to be able to stretch the field and to take some shots deep vertically. They've got a guy that can get the ball there. They've got a guy that can go catch it. So that's kind of how I view this Georgia offense. They got all those studs at running back. They're not going to abandon the run game all of a sudden and this thing turn into some June Jones, slinging it around top offense. I don't think that's going to happen. They're still going to run the football, but I think you're going to have to respect that threat now that Georgia can push the ball down the field using a vertical passing attack. That, especially early in the year last year, that wasn't the case with them. Yeah. Not really all that concerned about injuries in that wide receiver room. I know there's been a lot of hand-wringing over George Pickens. I feel like Georgia's recruited well enough. There's enough depth there that, now, is George Pickens special? Yes, sir. No doubt about it. But I think there's enough guys there that can at least be adequate enough to be able to get the job done for Georgia going into this year in terms of their ability to be able to catch the ball. But as far as the spring game goes, I love it, right? Like I watch them all. I mean, thank goodness for the SEC network because we get to watch them all now. But it's one of those things. I think spring games are kind of set up for fans more so than they are for anything else. And I know a lot of coaches will set things up for their offense or for even sometimes for their quarterbacks to have success in the spring games because it makes the fans feel better. I'm not saying that's what Georgia did, but I think they wanted to put on a good show for folks for the spring game. So I'm not going to take too much away from those statistics, but you go back and read the comments of Kirby Smart and Todd Monken leading up to it. And since then, there's no doubt that they're going to try to push the ball down the field a little bit more in bigger chunks, those splash plays, which is something they didn't have last year.
Well, for me, from the coaching standpoint, looking at that, when you have a corner goes, Stokes gone, and your other corner, other side is gone, you got two holes to fill. You got some outstanding recruits that are already there since January. You want to give them a chance to get the film on as many kids as you can so that you can be able to go back and teach and zone in on what those kids did well and what they didn't do well. And then for the quarterbacks, I look at it, you got the kid, Brock Vandegrift kid who came in, and the Beck kid. I mean, those kids are good. You still got the Stetson kid. I mean, listen, those kids were throwing the ball around, and it helps for Monken to be able to break down what each quarterback did well as of today, and then what he needs to work on and coaching points. And also, from a coaching standpoint, as far as I'm concerned, as a head coach, you get the ball out as quick as possible because when you're a lot of times when you're running the ball a lot, it's a lot of tackling, a lot of bodies, and you got a lot of crunching, bone crunching going on. And that's when the trainer has to come on the field and you got to help the kids get off the field. So at least when you air it out a little bit, sometimes if you get it out quick enough, and it's not a deep drop and deep route deals. You just get the ball out and see how well people play with max protection. You minimize some areas of possible injury. And I thought that Coach Smart did a fantastic job of addressing those things. And yes, you're right. I agree with you. We already know what James Cook and Zamir White and Kendall Milton can do, and the McIntosh kid. We already know what they can do. I mean, there's no question about that. Justin Schaefer, the kid out of Cedar Grove High School, a powerful offensive guard. I mean, some of these kids, we know what their skill set is, but it's kind of nice to be able to get the game. The greatest part, and I agree with you, is at the end of the game, you don't have any major injuries. Everybody can go home safely. So I agree with you. And, for me, and I say this tongue in cheek, looks like Georgia wants to throw the ball a little more, get more vertical, like their big brothers over in the West, University of Alabama, because then you can open up those running lanes for some, James Cook, Samir White, and the Kendall Milton kids. You can open things up a little bit. So I would like to see them play in the SEC championship game. G, I'm gonna tell you that right now. That would be great to see. The master against 1A or 1B, should I say it, and let's rock and roll. Let's have a great season of SEC football. So I can't wait for the Bulldogs to strap it up and be better. And I just feel better for them because now they got some security at the quarterback position. And he still has tools. The Washington kid, the big tight end, he still got Burton, who was a little injured. So he still got that. But you said this once before. I was listening to you before, and you mentioned about Georgia, even though they had some kids leave on that defense side of the ball, they still got a few. Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis, the Dean kid at linebacker. So they still got some players. But I think you would agree now it is all about how much you can score. Would you agree with that? Because that's what it looks like now.
Yeah, the old adage about defense wins championships. I'm sorry, Coach. I don't know that that's I don't know that that's the way the game, at least at the college level, gets played anymore. I mean, I think now you have to be explosive on offense, and you go back 25, 30 years ago, man, coaches used to, the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator, they would have there would be battles in the room when the new recruiting class came in over, man, I want this guy on offense. I want this guy on defense. I know, back in the day, Tennessee went through that with Carl Pickens. When Carl Pickens was there, because they wanted Carl Pickens to play wide receiver. They wanted him to play defensive back. They did that with Dale Carter. They wanted Dale Carter to play on offense, and he, of course, ended up playing in the NFL at safety. So you get a lot of that going on with coaching staffs, and I think the thought process now is a lot of times, especially with some of those difference maker type guys, man, we gotta find a way to get them on offense, and that's what. I think that's what Georgia's trying to do. They're trying to stockpile as many of those guys now as you can. The game has changed. It's the reason why I didn't give much credence to Notre Dame last year. I didn't think Notre Dame's offense was explosive enough to be able to score points the way Alabama was scoring points, the way Clemson was scoring points. And, I think Oklahoma's going to have a really strong offense again this year with Spencer Rattler coming back. So Look at North Carolina and Sam Howell. They can put up some points. So to me, that's where it's at. That's how the game is played. When Nick Saban is playing the way he's playing right now, and I'm not saying that, Alabama doesn't play good defense. Don't
Right.
get me wrong.
That's right.
But it's clear now that the focus at Alabama has turned over to the quarterback and the offense in general. I give Lane Kiffin some credit for kind of pulling Nick Saban into what you may want to call modern college football. But that's the way. This is about the offense now. All the rules are set up now for the offense to have success. I think the hardest position in football to play at any level right now is defensive back.
Correct.
Because you can't, I can't put my hands on somebody. I can't bump you at the line of scrimmage like I want to slow you down. I can't do those things anymore. And so I think it's certainly everything favors the offense now. That's the way the game's being played.
Well, I tell you, G-Man, I appreciate you coming on the show. It is wonderful when I can steal you away for a few minutes to talk about just what's going on in the football world for the Falcons. Talk about what's going on in the football world for football, college football as well, and especially today, those Bulldogs up there in Athens. I think we're headed to a great season coming up this fall. So I appreciate you coming on the show. Once again, G-Man, we got to get together again and we can and rub our elbows together on some more football talk coming to a date and time near you. I enjoyed having you with me today.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Always glad to be with you.
Thank you. If you enjoyed the show, thank you so much for coming in, and make sure you share it. I'm Coach Kevin Bull Jones. This is 100 Yards of Football, and on behalf of my wonderful guest and my brother, the G-Man, Chris G-Man Goforth, we enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching 100 Yards of Football Sports.